COVID-19, there is chaos everywhere. There are a lot of industries that are about to fail. Everything is a mess. Automobile companies are in even worse shape. But there is a business that has made 80% more money. It's called Kia Motors. Now, this name was brand new to us Indians at this point. But this company used to be talked about around the world, even though this well-known company was declared bankrupt in 1997. Still, how did it get back on its feet? And as soon as it got into a market as competitive as India's, we'll go over everything in this video. Friends, this story starts in Korea in 1905, when Kimchiol was born. He goes to Japan to look for work. He gets the chance to work in a steel mill there. During the same job, he had the thought to start his own company. He then went back to Korea and on June 9, 1944, opened a small business called Kyungen Precision Industry, where steel tubes and bicycle parts were made. The Second World War was also going on at this point in time. Japan also took over Korea. That's why this business didn't grow much in the beginning. But Kim began growing his business as soon as World War II ended. In 1951, he made the first bicycle made in Korea, which was called Samcholi. Friends, this bike was so well liked that the name was used as a business name in the future. After that, the bicycle division began running on its own. Also, just so you know, Samcholi is currently Korea's biggest bicycle maker. It used to be called Kyungen Precision Industry, but in 1952, it changed its name to Kia Industries. Also, this business made its first motorcycle in 1947, which was a big hit. In fact, the name Kia comes from two characters in Chinese and Korean. The first is Ki, which means to come into being. The second letter is A, which stands for Asia. And putting them together means to rise from Asia. After that, Kia made its first truck in 1962. And this also worked out very well. The company didn't just want to get stuck in trucks and bikes though. In fact, it wanted to become known as a company that makes cars, because the company knew that a lot of people would want cars in the future. That's why Kia opened its first plant to put together cars in 1973. It was called Suhari Plant. And starting the following year, 1974, the business also began making cars. At first, it made the Barisa, a small car that people really liked. The company also made a lot of money from this. At this point, Kia was slowly making more cars. It was also trying to make as many sales as possible. But during that time, something happened that meant the company had to stop making cars altogether. In fact, South Korea was run by a military dictator named Chung Do-hwan from 1981 to 1989. He also thought about changing the way many of the industries worked there, including the auto industry. Chung Do-hwan wanted all the small car companies to make light trucks instead of cars for people to drive. Kia had no choice but to do what she was told. So, it had to stop making cars because of that. But at the start of 1986, the company teamed up with Ford and got back into the car business. After that, Kia began making a lot of cars to sell in South Korea and in other countries. These cars were mostly made by Mazda Motor Corporation, a Japanese multinational car company. Kia made cars like the Kia Pride and the Kia Avala that were based on the Mazda 121. After that, these cars were sold in Australia and North America as well. Kia's cars became very popular everywhere they were sold around the world. This was the reason why the business slowly began to grow in other countries. At that point, Kia was having the best time of her life. And together with Korea, it had made a very strong presence on the world market. But then, 1997 came along and quickly took away the company's profits, market share, and good name. In fact, Kia had a lot less sales this year because of the Asian financial crisis, and the company lost a lot of money. Things got so bad that Kia had to file for bankruptcy. After that, Hyundai Motor Company bought 51% of Kia's stock. Kia then became a part of Hyundai Motors. Hyundai did something different with Kia, and the company began making money again under its watch. The company made a lot of popular models during this time and ruled the markets in Europe and the UK for about 20 years. After this terrible comeback, Kia decided to take on a big challenge by going into a market that was already very competitive and had shown Fiat, General Motors, and Ford the way. India is where we're really talking about, because there are already a lot of big car companies there, and they have a lot of market power. Even so, on May 19, 2017, Kia said it would build a factory on 536 acres in the Anantapur district of Andhra Pradesh. The business had spent $2 billion on this plant. In January 2019, test production began at this plant. On July 31, 2019, the company released the first Kia Seltos, a mid-size SUV, in India. This car became very popular, but after a few months, the pandemic hit, making it harder for people to work and lessening their ability to buy things. This was the reason why there was a shortage in the automotive market as well as other areas. The most surprising thing, though, is that while the whole auto market was losing a lot of money, Kia's sales went up by 80%. Since this is the case, we need to ask ourselves how the company did this amazing thing. What did Kia do to be successful in India, which is a very competitive market? Let's get point by point. Fully loaded cars. In fact, no other car company had seen the gap in the market that Kia did in India until today. And that gap was in the money for expensive cars. Because other brands' high-end cars were so pricey that most people couldn't afford them. The more expensive cars, on the other hand, didn't have those high-end features that regular people could enjoy. Customers had no choice but to make a deal in this case. But when Kia saw that people were having these problems, it made its first car, the Kia Seltos, which cost Rs. 9.69 lakh to buy. When it first came out, 32,000 units had already been reserved. In its first month, the company sold 8,200 units, which was a great start in the Indian market. A lot of people liked this car for two main reasons: beautiful design and many other great qualities. Because this car had a 10.25-inch touchscreen infotainment system with Apple CarPlay, an electric sunroof, a premium Bose speaker sound system with air purifier, a ventilated front seat, and many other high-end features that I had never seen in a car in this price range. Along with this, LED headlights and the car's signature tiger nose grid were added to give it a sporty look. For an even more high-end look, DRL fog lamp indicators and tail lamps were also added. It was released on the market with 17-inch machine-cut alloy wheels that came in two-tone colors and a matte finish. This quickly made it the market leader. Kia Seltos was an SUV, and Indians now like to buy SUVs instead of sedans and hatchbacks. This was another big reason why this car was so popular. There were not many cheap SUVs on the Indian market at that time, though, so people did not have many choices. But when the Kia Seltos came out, it was advertised as a dream car, and all of the problems that Indian buyers were still having were tried to be fixed. This is why 40,581 Kia Seltos were sold in just 4 months. Aside from that, the business sold over 200,000 units in its second year, which is a huge amount for a new business. Also, the Kia Seltos was named one of India's best-selling SUVs in October 2019, beating out Maruti Suzuki's Vitara Brezza on the list from the previous year. But then the pandemic hit, and slowly all kinds of businesses shut down. Tata Mahindra and Maruti Suzuki, for example, started making fewer cars because there weren't many people buying them. On the other hand, Kia's sales in India grew by up to 80%. The company also launched Kia Sonet in 2020. In spite of the pandemic, it got 6,523 reservations in just one day. In its first year, this model also sold more than 1 lakh units, which was a giant step forward. So, even during the pandemic, Kia had to make more cars while other companies were counting their losses. Products made just for India, dear friends. When a car brand's product does well in one country, they make some changes to it and then sell it in other countries too. Like, Hyundai's Creta was first sold in China in 2014, and it became very popular there. The car then came out in Brazil the same year and did very well there as well. Not only that, but it was also released in India in 2015. In many other places, it was released with a lot of changes. The second example is Toyota's Fortuner, which was first sold in South Africa. It was so popular that it was then sold in India, the Middle East, Australia, and some parts of Latin America. Besides this, the Toyota Innova, Honda City, Hyundai Tucson, Nissan Kick, and many other similar car models did well in other countries, which is why they were brought to India and other places as well. This kind of strategy isn't new to Kia. They've been using it for years, but they were a little more careful with the Indian market than they had been before. Because of this, the company worked on making a car just for India that meets all of the needs of the people who live there. Most people in India like Kia's SUVs because they get good gas mileage, have better technology than other brands, come with extra warranties, and look so high-end that 90% of people like them. Kia knew that if their first product didn't work, it would hurt their reputation as a whole, and they would have to go through a lot of trouble to become a trusted brand. That's why Kia looked at what Indian customers wanted before they worked on their cars. They found out what features Indians really want in high-end cars and what features they don't want. Based on this study, Seltos were created, which turned out to be a big success for the business. How much, as we already said, India already has a lot of premium and luxury car brands. However, their high prices have kept them from getting many customers. So, Kia planned to keep the price of their car at a level that doesn't exceed people's means or fall below what people would expect from a high-end car. Because the average Indian person can only afford to spend Rs. 6 million on a car, the company priced its first car, the Kia Seltos, at Rs. 969,000. If they add a little more money to their budget, they can buy a high-end car instead of a regular one. Besides this, Kia cars cost between Rs. 7.79 lakh and Rs. 65.95 lakh. There are a lot of different models, and each one comes with a premium feature that matches its price. Because they were so cheap, the company didn't have to deal with any tough competition. As soon as their products came out, all of them became very popular. There are several choices. Now, friends, Kia hasn't just thought about the features of its cars. It's also thought about how to make its SUVs so that they can meet almost any need. For example, if you want a gas-powered car, they have that too. It is also possible to get turbocharged gasoline or diesel. The company also offers options such as IMT, DCT, manual, automatic, or CVT. If you want an EV, Kia released the EV6 on August 2, 2021. This means that if you want to buy a Kia, you might have to give up something. Friends, let's not think about all of this at once. The company also takes care of your family. For example, if you have a big family, Kia Carnival also has vehicles with 8 seats that are more roomy and have enough space for your luggage. It's also possible to travel long distances without any problems because the seats are so comfortable. In terms of colors, Kia cars come in a lot of different shades, such as pewter olive, clear white, sparkling silver, gravity gray, and aurora black pearl. And because there are so many choices, Kia's sales keep going up. 12,500 units were sold in December 2023. The next month, in January 2024, that number rose to 23,700. Friends, Kia made a very smart move when it went into India. By 2019, it had made 349 stops in about 160 cities. So it's easy for customers to talk to them and get service when they need it. But the most amazing thing is that no other Indian car company has ever started out at such a high level. Friends, this step makes it clear that the company's goal wasn't to test or try something new, but to catch the market. People quickly trusted this new brand because it had a lot of touch points and was easy to talk to customer service. Helped by Hyundai. You see, friends, we can't just praise Kia for her success. It's also been successful because Hyundai has been very helpful. Now, we already said that Hyundai owns 51% of Kia. Like this, Kia learned a lot about the Indian market and how people act here with its help. For Hyundai, the Indian auto industry was not at all new. It came in here in 1996, in fact. Hyundai had in this case learned a lot about how to stay ahead in this tough market. What this did was make Hyundai the second biggest car company in India, with a market share of more than 15%. Now Kia could benefit from the company's experience, and she didn't have to learn everything by herself. Also did a good job of finding the gaps where it could make a strong presence. This gave Kia a huge advantage over Hyundai, and in just a few years they grew a lot. And friends, Kia made a profit of Rs 825 crore in 2022 thanks to all of these great strategies. In 2023, that profit grew by 150% to Rs 2122 crore. This business still isn't taking the name of stopping. Also, which Kia car do you like best? Leave a comment to let us know. Of course, if you want to see how a poor kid built a Mercedes-Benz, you can watch the video in the description or above the post.